Health, my brothers and sisters. You know, over the last couple months, I've been observing how a lot of people are pushing for us to put our differences to the side and come to a common understanding or a common bond that would bring us together. And one of the biggest things that I see that's being pushed is the separation of religion from our struggle. And the more that I think about it, the more that I realize that this could very well be the reason why we're in the condition that we're in now. Because when we look at our way of life, Wotanism, Odinism, when we look at our way of life, we see that when you put our way in the perspective of religion, this is where the problems occur at. This is where we begin to have the misunderstanding of what it is that we follow. And one of the things that we have to understand is we do not have a religion. We do not follow a religion. What we have is a way of life that has been practiced by our ancestors for thousands of years. We have a set of beliefs that can waver based upon the person's understanding and how he looks at the mythology or the lore. For us, Wotanist or Odinist, we understand that our myth is an expression of who we are. It's an expression of how our ancestors viewed their surroundings, viewed the laws of nature. And we understand that our gods and our goddesses are not entities that we bow down to or that we worship in the form of praise. We don't fear our gods or our goddesses. Nowhere are we commanded to do that. What we're taught to fear is the decisions that we make, because every decision has a consequence. It can be good, it can be bad. But in order for us as a folk, to collectively preserve our heritage and our culture, we have to get back to what it was that made our people great, that made small tribes turn into kingdoms. And I think this push for separation of religion, I personally believe that a Wotanist or an Odinist should have no part in that, because we can't separate who we are from what we believe. We understand that our gods and our goddesses give us the necessary tools. They give us the necessary knowledge in order to preserve the individual and the collectiveness of our people. And we understand that as time goes on, the myths and the lore take on new meanings based upon the time frame, based upon the mentality of the people. So there will be a lot of issues that we deal with now that our ancestors might not have dealt with at that time. Does that mean that the myths and the lore don't apply? No. The myths and lore will always apply. And there's no greater time for us to get back to really worshiping our gods and really expressing our understanding of what they handed us by putting into practice not just lip service, not just placing a hammer around your neck, not just raising a horn or knowing a myth inward and outward. These things have to be digested within the mentality of us, within the actions of us, and our ancestral ways. We must get back to that, because this is the road and this is the path that we must travel. And I find it odd how some people want to separate and claim that religion is personal. That is a personal belief. If that is what you believe, then you are in the wrong way of life, because everything about our belief is serious. Everything about our way of life is not only personal, but it's also collectiveness. When we go back and we study the history of our ancestors, we realize that to them, the gods and the goddesses were everything. They were always up front. Everything they did, whether if it was hunting, fishing, working, raising their families, dealing with each other, it was all based around the gods and the goddesses. And we need to get back to that. We need to get back on that tribalism. We need to focus more energy on our tribes. And this is where we build our foundation, because from every kingdom, it started with a tribe. And this is what we need to get back to. Wotanism is a living entity. It breathes, it acts, and it can die. And what do I mean by it can die? It means that as long as we keep putting our way of life on the back burner to please other people of other religions, then slowly we begin to lose that essence. We begin to compromise our way of life. In all actuality, what we begin to say is what every other group or every other religion has to offer is greater than what our ancestors handed to us. So what I would call for is for us to get back to what made us great. For us to get back to what made us the most powerful people in existence. And that was the following of our gods and our goddesses. And we must, at all costs, preach and teach our people the correct way. Teach them that Wotanism and Odinism has a connection to their racial soul. Teach them the ways of our ancestors. Teach them about our gods and our goddesses. Reconnect them to our culture. Reconnect them to our heritage. And at all cost, we must always enlighten our people of the lies that are being taught to them. We must educate them and let them see that the foreign religions that they're following, the foreign gods that they're following, that the reason why they have to reinterpret their books and reinterpret the heritage and culture of that people is so that they can make it fit them. because they have no connection. And not only that, but we need to let them know that there is a light that can save our people. And that light is our gods and our goddesses. If we will only turn back to them, if we will only practice and live Wotanism. If we can do that, then our race, our folk, our people, our tribes, our kindreds have a chance for survival. The reason why the movement don't work and the reason why it's become stagnated is because there's no focus. Race alone is not a focus. The people have to be given something that is hardcore for them to believe in. This is why Wotanism, Odinism, is the fastest growing religion amongst whites worldwide. All other religions that the so-called white man has wanted to follow has crumbled. They've done nothing. Everything that the movement has ever produced has failed. But the one thing that never failed, the one thing that always stayed true, was that our gods and goddesses were always standing in the cut, waiting for us to turn back to them. There's an old saying that the Christians didn't defeat Wotan. Wotan only stepped back and let Christianity take its course. It took its course. That way of life for the white man has failed. Now Wotan has stepped forward. He has extended his mighty hand and he has reached out to his people if they will only grab a hold of his hand and turn back to him. Thor has already slung the mighty hammer and is slowly destroying our enemies. If we will only rise up and stand by Thor's side and continue to speak the truth, there will never be unity if we compromise with falsehood. And this is where the wokeness must step up. And the wokeness must be the vanguard for truth. We must always remember, never call our people to misguidance. And we will never hide the truth or cloak the truth under the guise of, this is for our race. I will never stand back and allow my people to be called to unity when I know that what you're calling them to is mental slavery. So with that said, let us rise up. Let the wokeness take the spot that Wotan has given him, which is the leadership role. Let us start with ourselves. Let us start with our families. Let us start with our tribes. Let us build our tribes to become examples. Let everybody else do what they're going to do. But for the wokeness, he will do what is necessary. And if it comes down to it, let us stand in the face of adversity and in the face of our enemies, and let's tell them, Wotanism is here. Our God Wotan has arisen, and we have heard his call. With that, Helsa.